Is your weight really that big of a predictor of your health? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast, Fit Disciples podcast. I'm your host, I guess. I'm Adam. This is my podcast. Thank you for joining me. I run a business called Adam Bro Fitness that helps specialize in people who are working in the nonprofit space or in the church space, and they're trying to get their health back in order or just thrive in general so they can keep doing what they feel like God wants them to do. So if you're listening, this is the Fit Disciples podcast, which means we're trying to do our best to be fit in the terms of like fitness, but we're also just trying to make sure that we are measuring up to what a disciple should be based on what the scripture says. But today I wanted to share a quick thought that there's a study that came across that came out this year. It's actually a meta-analysis, not a study itself, but it's more of a study of studies that talks about weight being less of a predictive factor than fitness when it comes to just health, longevity, and mortality risk. I shared this at a church recently, which many people listening to this are a part of that church. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this is because I think it puts in perspective a few things that may be out of perspective for most people. So let's get into it really quick, okay? We'll make this a quick one. Do my best to not bore you with too much detail. We'll try to give a nice overview, and then I just want to encourage you at the end, okay? So there was a new study, and I'm looking at my computer just in case you're wondering. In 2025, there's a study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine from February, was a meta-analysis that combined 20 different studies with over 400,000 participants in those studies. And they measured the relationship between fitness level, body weight, and mortality risk, okay? So the study's name was Cardiovascular Fitness, Body Mass Index, and Mortality, a systematic review and meta-analysis, okay? So if you want to look it up, you can. It's not hard to find. It's a pretty prominent new study. And the things that they measured, these are the things that they measured, and the key terms of the study were cardiovascular fitness. This is just how well your heart, lungs, muscles deliver oxygen during exercise. This was measured by your maximal exercise test. So it's via maximal exercise test. That's your VO2 max. How well you use oxygen, how much oxygen do you take in, and how well do you use it, okay? And obviously this is a determining factor of your fitness and overall mortality. VO2 max is actually correlated with your health so positively and negatively, depending on whether it's good or bad, whether your level is good or bad, that it's actually a more powerful relationship than smoking. So as bad as smoking is for your health, having a poor VO2 max is worse. So that's pretty significant, okay? The other thing they measured was a BMI, your body mass index, which is an older, this would be considered a limitation of the study, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's basically where your weight is divided by your height and then squared. They use this category of people, they use this to categorize people as normal weight, overweight, or obese. This is a limitation of the study, but as you'll see, it can be overcome. So give me 1 second. Let me do this. Okay. The last thing they measured was your fitness, and this was basically fit levels. Fit people means the top 60% of VO2 max, and then not being fit was below the 40% percentile. So it was kind of like if you're right around 50%, average VO2 max, you're probably in the fit-ish category. You're right on the cusp. So anything above 50%, like 60%, was considered fit. Anything below 40% was considered not fit, okay? So it wasn't necessarily about being an elite athlete. It was basically just baseline cardiovascular conditioning. They weren't measuring who was the top 2%. It was the top 60%. So that's pretty wide range, all right? So let's look at this. What did they find? They compared 6 groups. Normal weight people who were fit, overweight people who were fit, obese people who were fit, and then the same categories but being unfit. Okay, so normal weight but unfit, so skinny but not fit, overweight but not fit, and obese and not fit. Okay, so they compared these 6 groups. All right. The results that they found were pretty startling, and I think it goes against some of our cultural like thought processes, predispositions around when we judge people based on how they look. We judge people based on where they are, how they do things. We judge people based on whether they're overweight or obese, and we assume that because you're overweight, you're not fit. Those types of things. I think this can potentially challenge some of those things, okay? So it says that the people who were overweight or obese but had a good fitness level, meaning they trained, they lifted weights, they did cardiovascular exercises regularly, but they just didn't look culturally the part of fit. They had the same mortality risk as someone who was normal weight and fit, meaning they had the same chances of living or dying the same as a normally fit, like a normal weight and fit person. So there was really no increased risk based on this study, which we know that if you weight is still a category, it's still a factor in mortality, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But it didn't seem to be as big a factor as fitness level. The other thing they found was people who were unfit at any body weight had 2 to 3 times a higher mortality risk. So being unfit at any weight was 2 to 3 times more likely to die of anything. So the risk was pretty high. 2 to 3 times, that's pretty high. The gap, this is the last thing, the gap in risk between being fit and unfit was massive, right? The difference in your risk at being fit or being unfit was huge. Okay, 2 to 3 times more likely to die of something is crazy. But then the gap between your body weight, like being normal or overweight, was much smaller than expected, right? So the weight made much less difference in overall risk than being unfit was, because those are the 2 things we're comparing. We're not comparing whether or not being overweight is a risk, because it is. It just is not as big a risk as being unfit, okay? So that could challenge some of our cultural norms, right? So what does this mean? Let's just talk real quick. The study is not saying these things, okay? We read this and we think, oh, well, being overweight is not a problem. No, that's not what it's saying. It's comparing the risk between being overweight and being unfit. That's what it's comparing. It's not saying absolutely whether fitness is awesome and being overweight is just not a problem. That's not what it's saying. So what it's not saying is that the body positivity, being healthy at any size, like that kind of thing, it's not saying that is correct. That's not what it's saying, because that's not what it's comparing, right? It's also not saying that body composition, your weight, doesn't matter. It does matter. It's also not saying you can just ignore how much body fat you have. You can't. You can't just ignore it, especially when it's really high, when it's above what we should have. Being leaner comes with problems too, like getting too thin and too lean does come with problems too. But those issues are much less likely to happen in our culture, right? So this is something that the study is saying. Okay, we have to realize, like, many times we will read something like this or a headline. This is what happens in the news all the time, and we'll conflate what the study is saying. We'll assume it's saying this when really it's not even comparing those things. Like what this study, many people would read this and be like, oh, well, I can just be fat as long as I'm fit and I'll be healthy. That's not what it's saying. It's just saying that being fit is healthier than being unfit at any weight. That's all it's saying. It's not saying that you can be obese, but as long as you do your cardio and lift weights, you're still healthy. You're not. You are still having risk factors, which is the weight, the excess weight, joint problems, inflammation that come with, being obese or overweight, the sleep issues that come with it. All those things are risk factors. It's just comparing whether or not your weight is as important as being fit or unfit. And it's clearly saying that being unfit is a far bigger risk factor ultimately, like in absolute terms, than being overweight. Okay? That's just what it's saying. Okay, the reality is excess body fat still creates health risks. It creates chronic inflammation, joint stress, and metabolic dysfunction because it's hard on your body to be heavier than it needs to be. But it also is saying that fitness can really mitigate a lot of those issues, all right? Mitigate meaning not make them of no effect, but really minimize their effect. So this is why if you've listened to me for any amount of time, or if you listen to Peter Attia, you've listened to any of these other kind of health-based folks, is that exercise is the largest lever you can pull for your health. I know we like to talk about diet, carnivore. You got people talking about, oh, I've got a mold exposure, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Like, all those things are real. Like, I get it that a lot of people have been exposed to things that would probably be considered really detrimental to their health. But, pardon me, I got to sneeze. I'm back. But I would say that whether or not you are fit or not is a much larger risk factor than whether or not you are carrying around an extra 20 pounds or not, right? Because fitness creates a state of health in your body. Like when you exercise, you are sending signals to your body that it needs to adapt, it needs to get stronger, it needs to resist, it needs to build itself. And you can send those signals whether or not you are at a healthy weight or not at a healthy weight. It's independent of whether or not you are at a healthy weight. Your weight does not determine your health per se, ultimately, because there are plenty of people who are overweight, but if they do exercise regularly, they're going to live a relatively healthy life. They may get some risk factors that come from just being overweight in general, but those can be managed. The amplitude of how strong those risks are is definitely tamped down by the fact that they exercise. But this study is also saying that being unfit at any size, that means the skinny girl who just is skinny and doesn't work out because she's skinny, is just as unhealthy and at risk of mortality than the obese person. It's still a risk, okay? So the reality is this of the hierarchy. Being fit and lean is probably optimal, right? Because you're mitigating most of the risk factors that come from weight in general. Being fit and overweight is still better than not. Being unfit and lean is still a high risk. but being unfit and overweight is the highest risk. And that's where many people fall in. That's the category most people fall in nowadays, when 70% or what is it, like 80% of people are overweight, 70% are overweight, and then like 90 something percent of people have some type of metabolic disorder. All of that comes from lifestyle factors, not exercising enough, eating garbage food, not sleeping enough, not taking care of your body, right? All lifestyle factors, all choices. Some people, the rare person here and there, has a genetic issue that may predispose them to a particular health malady. But for the most part, most of our health problems are self-created. Okay? So the big thing is the gap between being fit and lean and fit and overweight is smaller than you might think. But the gap between being fit and unfit is enormous and such a huge risk. So we have to be really careful not to make excuses or not to get stuck in the cultural, not excuses, but not to get stuck in the cultural mind, the psyop that having abs is fitness, or being, being at an acceptable body weight is fitness, is health. It's not. Health is going to be much more measured in your body's ability to deal with stress. It's going to be measured in your body's ability to deal with sickness. And the best place to find that is to get yourself to a healthy weight. That doesn't mean abs. That doesn't mean posing for pictures. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means at a healthy weight. And for a guy, that could be anywhere from really, really lean to from 10% body fat to 20% body fat. Totally healthy. That means going from abs to no abs. Doesn't matter. As long as your cardiovascular system is strong, your muscles are strong, and you're eating a relatively healthy diet, you're going to be much healthier than the person who is skinny, jumped on Ozempic because they just didn't want to eat healthy and exercise, and they got smaller, but they're still just not fit. Okay, being not fit is the factor here. It's the risk factor. You can go and you can listen to my previous podcast talking about exercise being the largest lever we can pull. You can watch it on YouTube, but love for you to tune in there. YouTube is something I'm really trying to focus on. And it's the largest factor in determining whether or not you're going to live a long time or not, right? Other than your genetics. Your genetics play a huge role too, right? So pick your parents well. This study did have some limitations. A couple things that were limitations. So BMI is an outdated measurement because people are just bigger now in general. I don't mean people are just fatter. We are that. But people are just bigger now. We carry more. And that's because the populations that were used to create the BMI back in the early 1900s has been integrated with other populations now, and we just are bigger, okay? So BMI doesn't distinguish between muscle mass and fat either. So it tells me that I'm overweight. I'm 6 foot tall, 205 pounds, 208 pounds, depending on the day. I've worked out a lot. Now, I don't work out. I have worked out a lot. I carry quite a bit of muscle mass for my size because I've just spent so much time doing this. So it tells me, and my body fat level is low. So I'm usually around 10 to 12% body fat year round. That's just where I sit genetically and because of the habits I have. But the thing is, it tells me that I'm overweight, close to obese, because of the measurement. So this is a limitation to this measuring of this study. But it is still this limitation is still overcome because of the amplitude, the statistical significance of the results of being fit in this study, right? So the study, the results were strong enough to overcome these limitations and still being worth noting. The other thing is that this was observational data, not experimental. So people weren't like in a metabolic ward and they were testing them and taking their VO2 max. They were going, a lot of this was observational data, which observation is part of the scientific method. You don't get to just dismiss observation, okay? Which the internet would have you believe that if you observe something and it wasn't done with a randomized control trial, that it is not science. Well, actually, that is how you create science, by observation, all right? So it is important. The researchers followed people over time rather than randomly assigning fitness levels. So we're seeing strong associations, but not necessarily causation. And the definition, the other limitation was the definition of fit varied across the studies. So who was fit and how they defined fit was maybe not as narrowly defined across the studies as we would like. But in spite of those limitations, the findings were still huge. Despite these limitations, the findings were statistically significant across the 20 studies and 400,000 people, this is just basically solid evidence that being fit at any weight is better than being unfit ever. Okay? The reason I'm sharing this is to encourage you that in 2026, or just to double down on your fitness levels. Like, don't make excuses for yourself. This study gives you permission to work on your fitness at any body size, to start now. Start where you are. Don't wait. Don't try to diet your way down. Like, I hear people say this all the time. I need to diet down first and then I'm going to start going to the gym. No, that's the reverse order. Start going to the gym now. Do that first. Do that first, primarily. Start developing the healthy habit of going to the gym and working on yourself physically. And then start doubling down on your body size, right? Those two are going to help each other. But no diet will make you fit. That's what I'm trying to make sure you understand. No diet, no body weight size is going to make you fit and keep you from, protect you from injury, protect you from sickness. No diet is going to do that. Being fit will do that. And you can have those adaptations at any size. Fortunately, when you start getting fitter, you tend to start eating better and you just get to a better size. So win-win. Because optimally, you want to be at a leaner body weight, a healthy body weight for you. That doesn't mean looking like you can now post on Instagram and you can become a, self-proclaimed internet model. That's not what it means. It just means being fit at a weight for you or size for you. And for women, depending on where your genetics, but on average, a woman is really pretty healthy at anywhere from like 25 to like 35% body fat. Okay, even up to 40% body fat. Women just carry more body fat in general based on hormones and reproductive processes, right? So the big thing here is you need to be fit. And there's no excuse to not start. Okay? That's the point. Don't get sucked into the trap socially on social media where you've got to, you're comparing yourself to people who don't have a job and they just work out and they're like 18 and they don't have a job. Their job is to work out and, live at their parents' house. Don't compare yourself to that. Compare yourself to where you were and start today. If you're not in a great place today, start. If you're in a really good place, keep going, right? It doesn't matter. Fitness is the lever that's going to make sure you are living longer. It is the largest thing that's going to protect you from diabetes, going to protect you from dementia. It's the largest intervention that we can pull. And this study just reinforces the mounds of evidence that Fitness is the thing you have to have. Being at a healthy body weight is something you should have, okay? But you can get away with not having it to some extent. But it's preferred that you are at a healthy body weight, okay? So let me just encourage you. Fitness is the foundation, so start there. Body composition will come secondary. Stop making the scale your primary metric of health, okay? The cultural obsession with body weight has convinced people that if they don't look a certain way, health isn't achievable or hasn't been achieved. Just like weight is a spectrum, so is health. Weight is a spectrum. It's a sliding scale, right? Health is the same way. You're not going to one day, when you get to you're 1 pound away from being your goal weight and then that's healthy. No, as long as you're working on your health, you're getting healthier. As long as you're working to get your weight into a healthy place, you're getting healthier, right? It's all a spectrum. So start now, lift weights, do cardio regularly. You probably need to lift weights. If I was going to give you a prescription real quick, and you'll hear this from a lot of different people, you need to lift weights, probably full body. When I say full body, I mean you need to hit most of your body in your workout session. So if you're going to work out for 45 minutes to an hour, roughly, is what most people do. You need to be hitting your legs, your upper body, your arms, your back, your glutes, your hamstrings. You need to hit all those muscles. And you can do that by focusing on compound movements. If you're short on time, focus on compound movements that hit multiple things. Like if you wanted to do most of your legs, like you could do most of your lower body in 3 movements. You could do a leg press, which is going to hit your quads and glutes really well. Then you could do some form of hinging movement. This could be a Romanian deadlift or maybe a weighted dumbbell back extension. Okay, like a dumbbell back extension would hit your lower back, mid back, glutes, and hamstrings, right? So we've just covered almost all of your legs, and then you do a calf raise, okay? A calf raise if you wanted to, right? You could do cardio at the end on the stair stepper, and that would do your cardio and your calves at the same time, right? So that's 3 movements: leg press, Romanian deadlift or some type of back extension, and stair stepper, okay? We just did 3 exercises and you hit your whole lower body. Okay, how do we hit our upper body? Some type of either vertical or horizontal pushing. So that's like a bench press or a shoulder press. If you use a bar or a machine, you're going to get a lot more arm activation too, like tricep activation. So you can literally hit most of your pushing muscles pretty well with the bench press or the overhead press with a barbell, okay? And then you need to do some type of pulling. So that would be like either a seated row of some type, maybe an inverted row where you use your body weight and pull yourself, a lat pull down, pull-ups, doesn't matter. Some type of dumbbell row. There's a lot of exercises that do this really well. So we just did leg press, we did back extension, we did cardio on the stair stepper that hit our legs again, and then we did a bench press and let's just say a seated cable row. So that's 5 exercises. We hit most of our body. There's a few there are a few muscles that we didn't hit very well, but they still get stimulated. But with 5 exercises, you can hit most of your body, and you do this 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, and you progressively push yourself to get stronger every time. So you're recording what you did, and you're writing down what you did, and then you're referring back to it the next time you come in, or the next time you use that exercise. Sometimes people use the same exercises every day. That can work for a while. Some people like to, pick those 5 patterns, but pick a different exercise. So maybe not, instead of the leg press to hit your legs this time, maybe you do some type of like dumbbell walking lunge. So now you hit your glutes and your quads again, okay? But you want to make sure that you're doing your best. Every time you come back to that exercise, you're trying to push yourself up either in weight or in repetitions with the same weight. So you're progressively trying to get stronger. The number of people I know who would go to the gym and they've done the same movements for the same weight for the last year and wondering why they haven't gotten any stronger is because you haven't asked your body to get any stronger. You've just done the same thing over and over and over, okay? So you do that 2 to 3 times a week, you're gonna start getting fitter. Then you do cardio 2 to 3 times a week as well. What does that mean? You can add your cardio at the end of your weightlifting session. Great. You want to get your heart rate up somewhere in that 120 to 140 range at a steady pace, depending on your age and size. And then you probably once or twice a week, you want to get really out of breath for like 5 or 10 minutes. That means doing some type of interval training. Get on a bike, ride really hard for 30 seconds, and then ride softly for a minute. Do that for 10 minutes. No big deal, okay? But the big thing is that you just start. You have to start now. Don't make it crazy. Move your body daily in some capacity, all right? This study gives you permission to start where you are. It also removes the excuse that you can't make progress until conditions are perfect. There'll never be perfect conditions. Build fitness first, everything else will follow, okay? So as we begin to move into the new year, as we continue to see that fitness is a spectrum, just as weight is a spectrum, but health will be determined by how fit you are first, then your body weight, okay? So don't obsess about your body weight right now. Get your body moving. Fitness will start to come, all right? So hopefully this has been encouraging to you. I'd really love for you to check out some of my other places that I create content. I'm really thankful for people who do tune in and people who send me comments saying this has been helpful. I have a Substack where I send out, I write and send emails out to you, once, maybe twice a week. Try not to, be too heavy-handed with that because it can get irritating with so many people sending you stuff. But really, most of the stuff is encouraging, but it also gives me a chance to think and maybe add some nuance to what we're talking about. Also on YouTube, lots of content there, Instagram as well. Would love for you to tune in, give us a like, give us a share. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Smash that like button because, it helps us to, it helps us to get the word out. But also, we're trying to get to where we can monetize this thing and actually help people much more readily. So we really appreciate you tuning in. We're thankful for you. Check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and have a great day. All right.